Here we are at our measuring and classifying angles, day 2, example 2. Now we're asked to go ahead and measure these following angles, as well as then going ahead and classifying those. So our first one up, for A, we have JHK. Now remember, this is where we start. That first letter is where we start. The middle guy is your vertex. So we're going to end up at H in terms of the middle. And then we're going to end, finally, going towards the point K. So when we read that angle measure, it's angle starting at J, going to H, and then finishing off at K. So starting at J, going towards H, and then ending at K. And so since we started off at 0, and we worked counterclockwise, then we see that we have an angle measure there of 55 degrees. So this angle, JHK, is equal to 55 degrees. And since that's less than 90 degrees, we know that that's an acute angle. Next one up, we have angle JHL. Again, we're just starting off at J, going to H, and finishing off through L. And so that angle measure, when we measure it, is a full 90 degrees. So angle JHL is 90 degrees. And since it's 90 degrees, we would call that a right angle. Next, we have our measure of angle GHM. Again, this is your start. There's your vertex. And then there's your finish, where you're ending off through. So G, we notice that we're going to start on the left side, because that's where our G point is located. And then we're going to go through H, and then finally pass through M. So there's our measure angle. Now, since we're starting off on the left side, right here, you can actually measure angles using a more clockwise approach. And as a result, when you're measuring those clockwise values, you would be using the outside numbers. So this is where you'd see like 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees. And so since we're kind of in between 30 and 40, we would say then that the measure of angle GHM, and it's exactly in between 30 and 40, is 35 degrees. And since it's less than 90, we would say that that is an acute angle. So remember, back from Monday's notes, you can read things clockwise as well as, most of the time you read them counterclockwise, but you can definitely see them clockwise, and that's a prime example of one for problem C. Next we have D. So we're trying to measure GHK. So G, going through G, in the middle of H, and then finally ending off at K. Well, again, here we're starting on the left side, and we are going clockwise. So we're reading those outside degree measures, and in this case, we notice that we're right in between 120 and 130 degrees. So we'll say then that the measure of angle GHK is 125 degrees. And that would be an obtuse angle. Now, these next questions are going to become a little bit more involved. Not crazy involved, but you're definitely going to encounter these more in high school. And they're a little bit tougher. So we have to find the measure of angle LHK. So we're starting off at L. We're going through H, and then we're ending at K. So we're starting through L, going through H, and then finishing off through K. Okay. Now there's two approaches. I'm going to go ahead and show you both. For E, I'm going to go ahead and show you kind of like what I would suggest is the more mainstream one, and what I usually encourage more students to use. Imagine we have the measure of LHJ. And you might be wondering, well, but we're not going through LHJ. And you'd be correct. We're not going through LHJ. However, that does give you a larger degree measure such that then you can later subtract from a smaller value. So what I mean by that is that angle measure is 90 degrees. So LHJ right here would be 90 degrees. Now, if I were to take away this measure KHJ, well, there we see that it's 55 degrees. If I were to have my LHJ and take away, so this whole thing, and then take away this 55 degrees, I would be left with this final answer that I'm actually looking for. So again, I have my bigger angle, LHJ, and then I remove these degrees, because it's not part of my final angle I'm actually looking for, then I would be left with the leftover stuff, LHK. So as a result, we had 90 degrees for LHJ, and then we're taking away the measure of angle KHJ. And we said that that was 55 degrees. And when you're left, like when you subtract those, you're left with this leftover angle that you're actually looking for, this LHK, which is 35 degrees. So that's how you can find it. You can find the bigger angle, and then you take away the stuff that's not important for that angle. So if you got the hang of that, go ahead and skip on to the next one. But again, just a quick explanation one more time. I'm looking at my bigger angle right here. I found that degree measure. It was 90 degrees. I then found the smaller angle, and then removed this stuff, so then that I was left with my leftover final answer that I actually care about. This is what I really wanted from the beginning. Okay. And since that is a degree measure smaller than 90, we would call that an acute angle. Next we have LHM. Now, the other approach is super similar. You're kind of just more doing it in your head. But you would have, we're looking for LHM. So LHM is our degree that we're looking for. The way that I'm talking about is we would have, it doesn't matter which one you start with. So let's say we'll start with this guy right here. That has a degree measure of 145 degrees. And you're taking away, and the reason how I got that is it's coming from right here, 145 degrees. And you're taking away the 90 degrees. And when you're done with that, you would have a total of 55 degrees for this angle measure. Now, you can work backwards. In other words, instead of going like as this one as your larger angle, you can work the other way around. And what I mean by that, we'll leave that one up, but then show this one in red. This is still your same angle. And we can actually start at 90 degrees. But then we're going to take away the smaller of these two. And we see that it's passing through 30 and 40. So then that would be 35 degrees. Notice this time how I'm using the outside values. And then that would still give you a measure angle of 55 degrees. Okay, so there's kind of two routes you could take with that. Again, a lot of my students in the past, they kind of just use the way that we just talked about for E, just because they can conceptually see that a little bit more clearly. But this is another option I want to give you guys. So for F, we said that the measure of angle LHM is 55 degrees, and that would be an acute angle. But again, though, that is example 2 from our measuring and classifying angles, day 2.